Welcome to the Overdrive Outdoors Podcast.
Your source for everything outdoors.
Let's kick it into overdrive.
Overdrive Outdoors Podcast, brought to you by Predator Hunter Outdoors. Whether you are new to predator hunting or looking to upgrade your equipment, Predator Hunter Outdoors will have you hunting after the sun goes down. Carrying a full line of lights, night vision, and thermal optics, along with tripods, calls, mounting systems, and more, check them out at www.predatorhunteroutdoors.com or on Facebook at Predator Hunter Outdoors. Use promo code OVERDRIVE2021 for 20% off your order. Want to lengthen your time in the field and shorten your scouting time? Not only does the HuntWise app show you property boundaries, landowners' names, and in some cases even their phone number, but using the app will show you the wind direction on the map of the place you want to hunt. And the HuntCast feature shows peak movement times for various species, including predators. Get the HuntWise app at www.huntwise.com, the Google Play Store, or the Apple App Store, for only $59.99 a year for Pro or $119.99 a year for Elite. Use promo code OVERDRIVE20 for 20% off an annual membership.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's me. I'm back, Josh Mapes, and tonight I actually have my son Carter, my daughter Olivia on my lap. I'm not sure how much she's going to talk, but she's going to sit here and listen to some hunting talk for a while. And this week we have none other than Mr. Kevin Rott, Tools of the Trade, Sales and Service, Overdrive Outdoors staff. What's going on, Kevin?
It's snowing pretty good here.
Yeah, we've gotten probably an inch or two in the last hour, probably.
I don't think we have quite that much, but there's enough that's covering the ground. And then right now it's kind of like a heavy, fluffy snow.
Yeah, it's kind of wet down here. Perfect tracking snow.
Yes.
It's going to be probably one of them days tomorrow, depending on how much we get. Drive around the back roads on my way home from work, see what kind of tracks there are.
I thought about that today too, but most of it melted before I got out of work.
Oh, yeah.
And it's probably going to do the same thing tomorrow because it's supposed to warm up gradually through the week to be up about 50 on Thursday.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
And like combination rain and snow almost every day.
Well, it might be a good weekend to go hunting then.
Yeah,
Maybe
I'm hoping
for the kids.
Right.
Yeah, it's been kind of chilly the last couple weekends, so the kids haven't really been getting up to go hunting much, but that's where I've been for the last pretty much 2 months. I haven't done a podcast in probably close to 2 months, but I have been really trying to fill the freezer this year. And until recently it wasn't working out all that hot. So for anybody that's been wondering, if you have been, where the heck did that Josh guy go? I've just been in the woods a ton and trying to get Carter on a deer. Owen, my middle boy, he finally asked to go try last weekend, I think. And it was an evening hunt, and it was, I think, 4:30 by the time we got to the spot, and it got dark by 6. He was cold by 5:30 and ready to go. So, I mean, that's where I've been. I've been trying to fill the freezer. Beef prices are not going down at all, it doesn't seem like. So, filling the freezer has been the name of the game for me. But, Kevin, you haven't been really out trying for deer at all.
I've went out once, and I shot one deer, and we couldn't find it.
What was the story on that one?
So I got one of the landowners where I coyote hunt, and he had asked me back during the early doe season if I wanted to try and shoot a couple does out there, because he has a lot of deer. I know you've been out to that spot with me in the past.
And the box blind on top of the hill?
Yeah. And big field, and there's just deer everywhere.
Yep.
And he said his dad wasn't really on board with wanting to thin out the does, but now he is. But during early doe was right before we left to go to bear camp, and it was warm, and I don't have a walk-in freezer or anything. So with the warm weather, and I'd have to process it so fast and everything before we left for bear camp, I declined. Well, I kind of reached out and asked if anyone want any does thinned out, and he got a hold of me and says, "Hey, you want to still shoot a doe? Come on out." And I looked at the weather forecast and what my schedule is like, and I said, "How about I come out Wednesday?" He said, "That's great." So he said the deer have been coming out actually like 4:30, 4:45, so plenty of daylight time to get on them. So I went out there and sat in almost the same spot that I do when I'm calling coyotes. I got out there probably quarter after 4, 20 after, and at 4:40 they started coming out in the field. I bet you there was probably 15 to 20 deer in the field, and I had plenty of time, so I just waited. I wanted to shoot the biggest doe I could see, the oldest, most mature doe I could find out of the group. And it took a while because the ones that were biggest kind of grouped up in one area, and it took a while for them to get clear, so I could have a good safe shot for one deer. And finally it cleared. It was only a 156-yard shot according to the ABL. And it's the same gun I used to shoot my bear with, same ammo, everything. So I held right on the boiler room, right behind the shoulder, pretty much, touched it off. She jumped straight up in the air, came down, went all the way to the ground, and then got up and ran into the trees, which were probably maybe 50 yards away. And at first I was thinking I could see blood coming out, but after I went back and looked at the video, it was actually her offside leg. And it didn't look like the leg was broke because it stayed straight. There wasn't any flopping of the leg, but looked like it was flopping from the shoulder. So I'm thinking, yeah, good shot, busted that offside shoulder, which should have put everything right through the vitals.
Right.
And so I waited a while, sent a message to the landowner because he had told me, if you get one, let me know. I'll bring the side by side out and we can haul it back up. So I sent him a message and started to walk out there after a while. I couldn't find any blood right off the bat in the grass. But I mean, it's grass and leaves. It was windy. It'd be kind of hard to find some anyway, unless it was like really super good blood. So then we moved into the wood lot, and I had my thermal with me. So I was scanning in the woods as we walked in there, and we found blood starting right at the edge of the woods, and it was decent blood, bright red. We ended up tracking that deer for probably, it only went like about 100 yards into the woods, and we basically lost blood. But we looked for probably 2.5 hours that night. Never found anything, which was funny too, because while we were tracking it the whole time, there's all kinds of deer in the woods watching us. And we got within probably 15, 20 feet of some of those deer before they would take off. But anyway, we looked for about 2.5 hours that night, didn't find it. Thanksgiving Day, got up in the morning, went over there. Mike Latroll came over and helped us track. So the three of us looked for probably another 3 hours and nothing. Like I said, that blood went like 100 yards and then nothing after that. And I mean, we did grid searches of the whole property that we could go to and never found it. We went back out. We did find blood in the field where the impact site was, found a couple pieces of bone. So I gotta believe that deer's dead somewhere, and it's probably coyote food right now, but we couldn't find it on the property that we could actually go on to track it.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate, but in hunting,
It happens.
nothing's ever going to go to waste.
Right. Oh, yeah.
At that spot specifically, I know, that deer, even if it is dead, won't last very long. But
No.
you're not alone in that this year. We've had some issues like that ourselves. Actually, Carter was the first one this year to get a decent shot at a deer. I mean, I had missed a doe early in the season. I don't even know if you know about this. When I went up north with my cousins, I passed that little 8-point. The last morning I had a doe come out and she busted me, took off running and stopped about 35 out. And I squeezed and she dropped and was gone before it even seemed like my arrow got there. So I missed her completely. It just probably a shot that, not looking back, I shouldn't have taken because she was already alert and it was 35-ish yards. Low, what's the word here? Low probability.
Okay.
Probably, at that point. And then probably 2 weeks later, I missed another doe. And that one, I don't know. I knew right at the shot that I had missed because I dropped my bow arm real bad. And I sent it right underneath her. And I was starting to get pretty, pretty upset by my shooting ability this year. And then it was Carter's turn. And we went out and, we sat on the ground that night and had the wind right in our favor, coming up over the ridge, dropping down into a bottom behind us. And we had
5 point.
Yeah, it was a 5-point buck, came in probably about
Saw us and it didn't even care. It came right in. And it stopped. It gave me a shot. I got ready, squeezed the trigger, but I popped my head up, hit it right in the leg.
Yeah, I popped his head up in the video because I had the GoPro over his head. As soon as he squeezed, he lifted his head
To look
off
where the
that
shot
tree.
went.
I mean, I assume, were you trying to see where your bolt hit? Probably. And I've seen some people comment about lit nocks
Mhm.
being a cause for that because you can see it so well that you actually look for it.
Okay.
Well, I was trying to explain to him, and we've talked about it before. He shot coyotes, he shot deer, and it was always keep aiming until what?
Until that is in it.
Yeah,
Whatever
until the
shoots in it.
bullet or the arrow is already in it. You keep on aiming pretty much. And I mean, watching myself shoot and different videos of myself, I have the same problem, especially when I get excited.
Mhm.
I'm working right now on the video from opening day. I killed a coyote and a deer, and I got the video going for that right now. And you can see me squeeze the trigger and peek. I mean, I think it's part of excitement for me.
I went through a phase where I was doing the same thing, and it's hard to tell sometimes that you're doing it unless you have some way or someone else watching that can see you do it. But I think I was doing the same thing. It was just a question of, trying to work on that follow through, like you said.
Yeah, just keep on aiming. And I've told them that with targets, you keep the crosshairs close to where you aimed until you could see that bolt in the target already. And I mean, it just that was his first buck opportunity.
Mhm.
So he
It's
ended
pretty
up
exciting.
Yeah. And,
Right.
and the funny thing was it wasn't a small buck. It was a 1.5 year old buck, but he had good genetics, I think. So his rack was actually pretty nice. And when we first saw it coming up over the hill, I said, Carter, that's a buck. And I think it might be a big buck. I mean, you could just see just enough rack where it could have been anything at that point. And I said, just don't look at the rack, focus on it being a deer. And he says, Dad, when you tell me not to look at the rack, that's all I want to look at. And I said, I know, I get how that goes, but yeah, so you ended up hitting that deer almost perfect. And I posted the video from this one on the page, just a little snippet of it. He hit that deer left to right almost perfect. I mean, if he would have kept his head down, because I think the shot was 18 yards. So it wasn't a far shot.
Mhm.
And oh man, I just got myself off track. Where was I there? I
You were
went to
talking about it
yardage.
being a close shot, and he was good left and right.
Oh yeah, good left and right, but he hit it probably close to 6 inches lower than what he should have. And I believe it is all because he lifted his head. So, I mean, we tracked that deer on we didn't have really good blood. We had a couple spots where it looked like he was walking slower or something.
Or
But we
stopped
tracked
and
it.
looked back.
Yeah, we tracked it probably 300 to 400 yards. It never
400,
slowed
you
down.
said.
Yeah, because I had it tracked. It was almost 400 yards, and it never slowed down. It never stopped. It never bedded. And then I went back home and we watched the video, and you could see it right square through that leg, the onside leg. The offside leg it missed, but that deer will survive. I mean, so there was nothing to worry about there. Just an unfortunate part of being a deer hunter.
Yeah.
Um,
Or any hunter for that matter.
yeah, pretty much. What do you think about that? Got no thoughts? He's having trouble coming up with the words. It was a good time, and it bummed him out a little bit, I think. I told him, you're going to have to sleep tonight knowing what happened and, just think about it the next time. Well, then
we found the arrow, no blood on it.
Yeah.
I found the
Oh.
arrow in the dirt. I had just seen the neck. That's the only thing I could see. I pulled the whole arrow out, and no blood was on it. There was something on the.
just a little bit of meat on the fletching. But yeah, so then it was man, my deer season's been long because I'm blessed with a very good wife that just lets me go and do it when we don't have anything else to do. I think I look back and counted and I hunted 26 times in October. That's a lot of hunting. That's a lot of come home from work, quick take a shower, jump in the truck, go sit in a tree over and over. But like I said, the prices of meat aren't coming down. My wife and I both agreed the more deer, the better this year. And as long as we didn't have anything going on, it was all good. But I ended up taking the first week of November off. I spent 5 days, I think, up at my dad's property with Tony Bonacegna from Mountain Lodge, Clint with Sandy the Tracker. He's my brother-in-law. Chris Wakefield, Overdrive staffer. My brother was up there for 2 days, Ryan. And then he ended up going to Missouri for a deer hunt, which actually I'd like to probably get him on here at some point and talk about that. But we went up there and we spent 5 days up there. Clint and Chris spent that whole week together because I was with Tony. Tony, for anybody that don't know, he's from Ohio. So he came and bought a non-resident tag for Michigan to deer hunt Michigan. That's not you don't hear of that very often. Somebody coming from a different state to come here to hunt. But so Tony and I had some very close opportunities. We never drew back a bow, I don't believe. We saw probably 4, maybe 5 different bucks, and they were all small except for one. Man, I don't even know if we saw that many bucks, but we had one, and the video is going to be, I think, on Carbon TV through the Mountain Lodge show. We had one, it was like the third or fourth night that we were there. And I knew setting up this spot. See, so with Tony, we were setting up 2 tree stands per setup, one for video and one for shooting. And we each had a camera. We each had a bow. So we were both carrying around tree stands, backpacks full of camera arms, camera gear, all this. Finding a tree to set up in like that proved to be way more difficult than I thought it would. Finding a tree that you could have enough cover in to set up 2 tree stands in with 2 people, both 200 pounds ish. It's hard to hide. You're shaking your head.
I'm thinking I think you're probably under 200 and he's over 200. That's all.
Well, yeah, we even out. We even each
Balance
other out.
it out.
When we're each on one side of the tree, it balances better.
There you go.
We had one nice buck. When I set up this set in particular, I climbed down on the ground to get some other stuff together, and I looked up and I said, it's not going to work. And we climbed up, and Tony said to me that night, he said, we going to hunt here again in the morning, or are we going to pull all this down and leave? I said, let's just see how many deer bust us tonight, and then I'll make my decision. That's exactly what happened. We had a doe come out on the hill, and she was about 60 yards. And this is probably only an hour after we had set up. And Tony was going to shoot her if she came down and gave him a shot. So I'm running the video camera, and there's like I don't know if it's a horse trail or human. It's a equestrian type trail, but it gets a lot of foot traffic too. And it was like 10 yards behind us. So we're watching this doe on one side of the tree, and all of a sudden she keeps throwing her head back. And I told him there's got to be another deer somewhere back there because she's looking at something constantly. And finally we heard footsteps, and it was like maybe 12 to 15 yards when we saw him. And he was a dang good buck. But as soon as he passed a little bit of cover, he looked right up at us. And
Love it when they do that.
yeah, that was game over. And I had my release. I shoot a thumb release. I had it clipped onto the D loop, and I was just putting enough pressure on it so if he started to step, I could draw real quick. And I bumped it while he was staring at me, and it was so calm that there was a little tiny tick sound, and he snorted and ran. That was all it took, was that little click. And I sat there with my head against the tree, just staring at the tree for probably 5 minutes. That was the biggest one. That was the biggest deer I've seen all year bow hunting. And I mean, that's pretty much how it ended for us. We only saw one more spike after that, and that was the next morning. Clint and Chris never got shots at anything either. They saw a lot of deer activity though. So we had a good week up there. We just never brought anything home. Clint, being with Sandy the tracker, he ended up getting so many phone calls while we were up there for deer tracks that he wanted to go home and start making some money again, helping some hunters out. Tony was going to take off, and then we pretty much all just decided, hey, let's go back, hunt some areas that we've got a little bit more scouting into this year, because I don't get up north to scout at all during the summertime. I scout a lot down here, none up there. So I'm like, well, I got deer that I already know that are around here, so I came home. And unfortunately, I think it was Friday the 4th or something like that of November, I finally had a great big doe come in, and it was like 22 yards, I think. And I've gotten kind of, I don't know, I don't always make the meh sound to stop a deer anymore. It depends on how close they are, because I've seen them spook to that if they're too close and it's just all of a sudden there. I've seen them just run. Well, so she was coming and she turned broadside, and I went, that's all I did was a lip squeak. And she flinched, like dropped and stopped and looked. And I shot holding for lung at that point, thinking she was going to stand up at the shot. Instead, she ducked even further at the shot.
Really?
So she was already ducked from me stopping her. And then she ducked even lower, like hit the ground when I shot.
So pretty much she laid down and then got back up.
Well, she hit the ground almost with her chest to turn to run, and I hit her right through the back straps. And I mean, I've got this one all on video. It just perfectly high. And there is a spot for people that clean their own deer. There is a way to hit backstrap and no spine. For anybody that doesn't believe that, that's the no man's land people talk about, because the spine drops down into the neck. Well, there's a section right there that's nothing but meat, and I've hit it twice now on deer. This time is the only time I got it on good video to see where it actually hit. And then I've skinned out and butchered a couple deer this year, and looking at it, there is a backstrap shot that you can do. Yep. And that's what we did on this one. And I tracked her probably 300-400 yards. It was almost 3 hours later, and I was still finding where she was like eating with other deer. There was piles of like fresh deer poop laying around in the acorns where it's almost like she just returned back to normal. Mm-hmm. So I figured she was going to survive. And then gun season came around. And my gun season, I have not gun hunted for deer in a long time. 8 to 10 years, I'd say.
Yeah.
But you built that 350 for us this year. That was the gun that the kids are going to use for deer season. They used it during the youth hunt. Hopefully one of them will still use it to kill a deer this year. My wife and I were talking, and I said, I really don't want to take the gun out. I love to bow hunt. And my reason is, when a deer comes in 20 yards and I got a bow in my hand, it doesn't matter what kind it is. Usually I am shaking like a leaf. If I know I am going to take a shot on that animal, I am excited. And it's taken me, I didn't get that anymore while hunting with a gun. That's why I hung up the gun from deer hunting for a long time. The last deer I shot with a gun was like 160 yards. I dropped her in the tracks. I never shook. I never got excited. Went and collected her and I was done. So I stopped gun hunting. Well, this year we both decided, since I hadn't gotten one with the bow and we were wanting venison in the freezer for the year, I needed to just do it however I could do it. And so
he brought the gun out.
I brought the gun out. The LTV from ATN is on the 350 Legend, and opening morning, my plans were kind of changed a little bit when I woke up. I was supposed to go to a small piece of private and found out somebody else was going to be there while I was. So I just didn't want to do that. It's a small enough piece. And so I ended up laying in bed till like 6:15, and it got light at like 7 that morning. And I was laying there and I'm like, there's a piece of public up the road I'll drive up to. And that's another big thing for me, hunting public land. Anybody that knows my area, some of you might, I hunt a lot of Allegan County public land. And during gun season, there's a ton of people. I mean, tons of people. Is it the same? Do you notice that driving around up by you? Do you have a lot of state ground by you though?
No, not right immediately by me, but up by where our deer camp is, there is.
Yep.
And it's the same thing. I mean, you can walk out. If you go out for a morning hunt, you go out, it's dark, you set up, and when daylight cracks, you look around and you can see, 2-3 other people within eyesight, orange pumpkins out in the woods.
Yep. And that's kind of what I try to avoid, because, and I'm not talking about all the hunters. I'm not talking about everybody that gun hunts. There are some of them that shouldn't be out there. I mean, nobody can deny that. There's some that don't have the common sense to be behind that gun and to not shoot at the first leg they see moving, that it honestly scares me, because there's people every year that get shot.
Yep.
And bringing kids out, I don't want to do that. So opening morning, I decided I pretty much drive down this road that's all public and see if there was any spots in particular that didn't have vehicles at them, especially ones that I have already walked, because I kind of had a plan for some of them. And it was literally, as soon as it hit public, 3 trucks parked off the side of the road, 1 in the parking lot, 2 in the ditch. Here's another one right here. And I got up to a specific parking spot and there was nobody there. And I've spent a lot of time in there during the spring and summer looking for mushrooms and just doing a lot of scouting. So screw it, I'll go try it. I'm the first one there. That's pretty much the biggest thing for me. If I'm the first one there, I'll wave you off if I see you or hear you coming, just so we're not hunting right by each other. But being the first one there is pretty important to me. So it was, I don't know, I had only gone probably 300 yards from the truck, and there was just enough snow on the ground, and it got cold enough that it got real crispy. So every step you took through that snow was loud. And I was just sitting on the ground. I had that, I've got that Swagger QD 42, the quick detach one for that gun, put it right on the Picatinny rail. So I was sitting down on the ground, tucked into the snow, and I was actually pretty comfortable. And it was probably, I think it was like 8:15. I first started hearing something running, and I had heard a lot of gunshots around me that morning. So I figured people would be moving deer around, and there's a beautiful snow on the ground, and I could just hear this thing. And I'm like, I know it's getting closer, but I couldn't see it. And you'd think with a big bodied deer, you'd see something coming in snow. Finally, at about 25 yards, a coyote popped out. And that was a pretty coyote, very white coyote. Basically, it came in, and I think I shot it at 12 yards, 13 yards with that 350 Legend. Jumped up, spun around a couple times, and flopped over. And I immediately got up, went over there and saw it. I think I sent you guys a picture, and drug it back 12 yards to the tree I was sitting at. And it was so quiet and crispy that day. I said, I probably should just leave because I've made enough racket in here now. And then I thought, no, I'll sit for another hour because I can hear so much and there's enough shooting going around that it shouldn't be anything for deer to be running around, And it was only 20 minutes later, I had a big doe. And actually, I heard her first, and I turned and saw her, and she was over 200 yards away from me and I could still hear her coming through that snow. And she came in pretty quick, pretty much like she had been chased off, either somebody shooting or whatever, you know. So she was coming through, not at a trot, but that fast, I'm not stopping walk. And I struggled to get on her, and I finally shot her, I think about 75 yards. And I'm shooting 180 grain Winchester, what is it, the PowerPoint, I think it is.
Like
It's a soft point, 180 grain for the 350, and dumped her. I mean, she was done right there. So I finally had meat in the freezer. I could settle down a little bit more at that point. But yeah, after that, I've been taking them
I got
a few
out there.
times.
I've got out a gravel pit. He's got out
Yep.
a gravel pit.
And
You've shot.
we're not to that story yet. What about your hunt? When I took you out there, how many deer did we see? Like 13?
somewhere around that, because there was tons of deer across the road, and
Yeah.
there's some in the pit, some across the side of it.
So this property that we got invited to, there's a public gravel road that cuts like the last quarter off of the property. So you can sit on one side and see the other side of the road, which is still the same property owner. And I don't know the legalities of it, but I do believe that if you have permission on both sides of the road and it's a gravel road, I thought you could shoot over it legally. I do not know that, but I thought there was something like that because it's the same I thought on public roads, like surrounded by public land. I thought that you could be on the road if you weren't in a vehicle and shoot either side. I thought, nobody quote me on that. It's just a thought coming into my head, but I kept telling them you can't do anything about it anyways because they're across the road and we're just not going to take that shot. And
So we were sitting there. I was watching that way, and
yeah, you were watching all
and
the deer.
the bigger does left, and littler
I think it was a button buck.
little guy came out, left, and there was one more little doe or whatever, stopped, looked our way, or looked somewhere across the road, started edging towards us, and came to the road. And Dad said that it probably wasn't going to come. I watched, and it was coming right across into where we walked in. It came right. I lost it. Just after it got in the trail, saw it again, and then I lost it.
Yeah, so he only saw it one more time after it crossed the road, but he didn't.
And
He
then
couldn't make out its whole body, right?
at one point I had a shot for, like, I could see a shot, but then it stepped forward.
Yeah,
I saw it one more time, and that was
it. And then we had those 5 show up on the back side of us, and we couldn't get the gun turned all the way. Right. But then, so that was, I don't know, last Thursday or something. And then I think it was Friday night. It was the next night we went back out there, and he said he wanted to pick the spot where we sat.
So I picked the other side of the pit, and we were sitting there, weren't seeing anything, not even across where that little guy came in. And we were looking, we were hearing stuff behind us. We didn't exactly know what it was. So we were looking, and Dad looks over and he sees deer legs. And it comes up a little bit over the hill, and it's a little 4 coming right in at 12 yards.
Yeah, it was close.
12 yards, and it caught where we walked in. It smelled us, looked our way, stood there for a minute, kept looking. It jumped back. So we started,
You don't have to yell.
so it jumped back, and it looked like it had gone. So we were looking around again. I look over and it's coming back. So we're getting ready, and I look over, and it probably had looked our way and saw us moving and jumped back again. And we didn't see it anymore
Well,
that
then
night.
it snorted and was gone. But
It
that
was snorting. You could tell it was across the road or so, just crossing it.
and that's probably one of the harder things, because we're sitting on the ground. We're not sitting in a blind.
I was just going to ask about that.
Yeah, we're sitting straight on the ground. We're just finding a little bit of cover and tucking ourselves up into it. And he shoots a gun right-handed. So all of his shots essentially that he can easily get to are on his left side. It seems like every time I take him, the deer shows up on the wrong side. And that's what this one did. I mean, it was so close. He could have shot it with the crossbow, but he still would have had to completely rotate the whole. I mean, and he's shooting it off of a tripod. We got the Night Snipe NS6 or NS, what is that? The 64? 67.
The ball head?
Yeah, the ball head.
NS67.
Yep. The heavier duty one. And he really likes that, but he still, he can't quite move everything yet without making a whole bunch of noise or making a whole lot of movement. Whereas us being a little more experienced with it, pick their moment, lift everything up and move it, get settled, and you're ready. And he's just got to learn that stuff yet. But yeah, that was a pretty close opportunity for him.
Few, like 5 more steps or so, I could have had a shot on that deer.
Yep. So then
just find some brush.
What was that, Saturday the 20th, I think? It was last Saturday. It's the 29th today, last Saturday. His birthday was the 19th. So he got, what'd you get?
Got Magic 8. I got a fartmobile thingy toy.
Explain that to Kevin.
So he got a Ford?
Oh, hopefully Randy Moody's listening to this one. But then you got what?
Then I got a pellet gun. So I wanted to shoot that next morning.
So he didn't want to go deer hunting. Neither did Owen. They wanted to shoot the pellet gun, play with the new toys, and not be cold.
And that same day, he shot one. Nice buck.
So that morning, and after pushing myself as hard as I did during bow, it's been very hard for me to get up extra early to go sit in the dark because I've gotten so accustomed to not seeing anything this year. And I just haven't had that much that much energy behind me. So I got out there that morning, the 20th. I think I left here about 6:20, and I got out there right around 7. It was already starting to get light, and I think it was 7:32, 7:35, something like that. I looked up above the pit, and there's a buck coming out. And like I said, with gun hunting, I rarely get the shakes anymore. I rarely get the excitement. And the first thing I saw on him was his antlers. And I knew that it was it wasn't some, last year's fawn or anything like that. And he came out and he was right around 100 yards, 350 Legend again with the ATM X-Sight LTV.
Shot him and he just fell over.
He's going to tell my story now because he was there.
I wasn't there, but you said it.
Well, I posted this video too. It was about 100 yards. I hit him a little high. Dropped them with that 350, and I was there for 35 minutes. I told the boys, if you guys would have gotten up, you wouldn't have even had time to get cold, but they didn't want to. So that was a nice 7-point, probably a 2-year-old 7-point. A lot of meat on that deer. Weird thing about that deer was he didn't have a neck. I mean, like no meat on his neck. Oh. And I don't know if it's because I posted in the video of it. He had a big, it was probably a 3-inch slice behind his ear that I think was from an antler, unless he got it caught on something crawling under a fence or something, maybe, I don't know, or a bullet even, maybe an arrow, I don't know, but it was pretty disgusting. And I'm wondering if maybe that wrecked or, deformed the meat growth or stunted it or, whatever. I don't know. But he had almost no neck. So when I got up to that deer, I flipped him over to make sure it was actually a buck and not a doe.
At this time of year, do you think it could have been possible that just for some whatever reason he didn't go into rut, so it just wasn't swollen, and that was like his normal
His
stuff?
tarsal glands showed that he had been rutting.
Oh, okay.
Because they were brown, like he'd been working scrapes and stuff. But I mean, the other thing is, once they run for a couple weeks, they get skinnier and skinnier and skinnier.
Right.
That's
Burn
why they
off
all
that fat and
right.
everything.
But I've never seen a deer come out of mid-November with a neck that small. Like it was abnormally small for a buck.
So what you're saying is you shot a pencil neck.
I did. I shot a pencil neck. Yeah. No, but he was a nice deer though. He's gonna get Euro mounted on the wall, and so we've got a couple in the freezer now. So we're still gonna try. Carter, it depends.
Day or day later, my grandpa shot one near that same spot.
Yep.
That same property.
Yep. He got a 6-point out of there too.
Down where you're at now, because you're in the shotgun zone.
Yes.
So are you back to muzzleloader / archer, or can you still use a 350?
Well, what does muzzleloader mean anymore?
Depends on where you're at.
Down here, I can use any legal firearm for
I'd
deer
like to shoot
season
a
during
muzzleloader.
muzzleloader. I don't have a muzzleloader anymore.
How many tags do you want to try and fill yet?
I want to put 7 deer in the freezer.
So you need 4 more?
Well, yeah, my father-in-law loves to hunt, but they don't eat a lot of the meat. So when he shoots one, he tags it, and I go get it and butcher it, and it goes in my freezer. So I think we've got 4 in there right now.
So another 3.
And, another 3. And I mean, he loves it when he comes over, and I have plenty of venison to cook for him. He likes it that way. It's actually, I think, my mother-in-law that doesn't like it more so than him, but they both eat it when they come here. So he loves to hunt. And I had a hard time with that for a little while. Like, you're just out there really just to kill. I mean, but at the same time, I've been out there with him a couple times now, getting deer out that he's shot and seeing how much he loves to actually hunt. It don't bother me. I mean, if the meat's not going to waste, he doesn't shoot them and let them lay. He doesn't shoot them, cut the head off and let the rest rot. He just loves to hunt. And so that's kind of changed my mind hunting around him a little bit this year. But yeah, we eat a lot of deer. Last year we ate 5 before deer season came around again, this deer season. So Alicia said at the beginning of the year, try for 7. Well, Carter's got 2 tags still. Owen's got a tag that it's going to have to get pretty warm for him to go out. He's built like his mom. And so he gets cold fast, doesn't have a whole lot of patience out there in the cold. This one can do maybe 2 hours in the cold, but I've been thinking about picking up a pop-up blind, but man, pop-up blinds, I don't know. I don't feel like you can really effectively use them as a pop-up blind. You can, but I feel like deer spot that.
It's something new.
Right, exactly.
At least unless you put it up in a spot and let it sit there for a while.
Right. Well, and that's my problem with the spot that we've been hunting. I kicked a trespasser out of it the other day when I was in there. And I don't want to buy something for my kids to be able to enjoy this and have it end up missing. That would irritate me even more than just having something of my own come up missing, because now you're ruining it for people who are coming up learning how to do this by taking their stuff. And I don't know. So I've been tossing around that idea of picking something up, and then I think I have a little buddy style heater that would warm that up plenty to keep them warm for a couple hours, but finding a spot to set it up where it's not going to walk off, that's the hardest part. And I don't like using them. And you can't just buy one and go put it out in the woods either. Have you ever smelled one of them things?
Oh yeah, they have that chemical material smell.
Right. Exactly. So you have to pretty much let it sit out and air out anyways. And at that point, it's going to be the end of season by the time I feel like the thing finally is going to work effectively, So, but I don't know. That's just where I sit right now.
So let's say you fill all those tags that you wanted to fill, 7 tags.
Yep.
Do you do anything different with your meat than the normal
beat it.
cuts? Huh?
I beat it. Beat the crap out of it.
Well, I guess what I'm asking is, like, have you tried smoking any of it? Have you
Yes.
tried canning any of it?
I have not tried canning. Actually, Josh Pelham, he always talked about how much he liked to can venison. I don't have a canner. I don't have like a pressure canner.
One you can borrow.
Well, maybe I'll have to try that because
You
I
guys
do
have an
want to
Instant
try.
Pot?
What's that?
You have an Instant Pot?
Yeah.
You can do it in an Instant Pot.
Oh, well, I didn't know that. But I've never done that. We do a lot of steaks, a lot of stew meat, tons of burger, because burger you can make anything out of.
Yep.
We do all of this ourselves. We get all of us together, me, Carter, and Owen. We'll go out there and skin one if they want to, or if I'm not in a hurry to get it done, we'll all go do it. And then we pretty much have a line in the house. I'm sitting there cleaning. He sometimes washes the meat off, gives it to me. I'll cut it up into whatever we want. And I've kept a couple front shoulders, whole front shoulders. I haven't kept any this year, but I have before. Basically season them all up and put them on the smoker, let them season for 2 to 3 days in the fridge, put that whole front shoulder on the smoker, like 2 to 215 degrees for about 6 to 7 hours. And oh my gosh. I mean, I did one and I covered it the last like 2 hours in grape jelly. It was like candy, like candied venison. It was awesome. And my father-in-law actually took some of that home. He was taking it home for somebody else. And he called me and he said, none of that made it home. So we're going to need some more. So yeah, I've done some smoking. I'm learning a whole lot more about cast iron cooking now. So I've been trying a lot more stuff in that. And honestly, recently we haven't been eating a whole lot of venison because we haven't had enough in the freezer to keep stealing it from. So, but yeah, I mean, I haven't done anything. I don't know. The only hard thing I really do that I think is somewhat out of the ordinary from a lot of people is we eat the heart. And not that a lot of people don't, but I think it's less and less common than the regular cuts, you know.
I've seen several people this year have said that they like to pickle the heart too.
I saw that too. Somebody commented that on one of our posts, one of my posts about the heart.
You know, I've never eaten heart before until this year, and I actually ate my bear heart.
Yep.
And I can't say as I'm a big fan. To me, it had a bit of a livery flavor to it.
Okay.
And I can't stand liver, but it wasn't strong enough that I didn't eat it. I ate it all. My wife and I ate it, but I mean, I wouldn't go out of my way to make sure I saved it in the future, put it that way.
What did Ann say?
She thought about the same thing.
Okay.
Now, I don't know if venison heart would be much different than that bear heart was. I don't know. But the idea of pickling it does sound kind of interesting because, I mean, pickling is great with a lot of stuff.
Right. And I've never pickled anything either.
I would really like to can some, though. I always thought the idea of canned meat sounded absolutely nasty to me. Yep. Until a guy brought some in and gave it to me to try at work, and I had it and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is great. We just took it out, put it with some gravy and pasta and mushrooms, and it was just delicious. But I know guys that make barbecue out of it. They do, you know, something with noodles, something with mashed potatoes, and I would like to give that a try.
See, now, so when people do that, it goes in there raw.
There's actually 2 different ways you can do it. You can do what they call cold packing, or you can do hot packing. Hot packing, I believe, is you'd like put a sear on it first.
Oh.
And I think you use hot water when you put it in there too. And then whatever, you know, some guys put garlic or peppers or onions or whatever in with it. But there is a method, I think it's called hot packing, where you like put a sear on it first.
So when they put it in there and do it raw, though, are they pulling that meat out and cooking it, or is it the process of canning it? It makes it edible.
The process of canning it makes it edible.
Huh. Interesting.
Yep. Because most of the time when you can it, you're boiling it. in the jars to actually get it to seal.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're cooking it at that stage.
Well, I will have to look into how to do it with the Instapot because I got one of those.
Yep.
So they basically are taking chunks or like stew meat sized bites,
Yep.
jam packing them in there.
Yep. You pack it in there, you put a little bit of water in it, get some good sealing lids, and then whatever you want for seasonings or stuff in it, you put it in there and do it up.
Oh. Yeah, we should try that sometime because that stuff, I mean, I don't know. Have you ever heard of like a life expectancy on that?
Years.
Well, really?
I'm thinking like probably a year if it's stored in good conditions.
Right.
And you got a good seal on your jars.
Right.
I know my folks used to can stuff like crazy. I remember them doing canned fish, but I don't remember them ever canning any meats. But I mean, really, as long as it's kept in a good, stable environment, it should last for a long time with a good seal, I would think.
Right.
I could be wrong on that, so don't go out and try it as a science experiment. Read up on it more before you take my advice.
Alicia really, Alicia's not the cook in the family, really. She likes it when I cook, and I like to cook, but she's got a good venison Salisbury steak recipe that she makes in the slow cooker. And I think it's just, I don't know if it's a couple cans of cream and mushroom soup, and she uses the meat, the tenderizer on backstrap, like thin cut backstrap steaks. And she makes a really good Salisbury steak out of that venison. But we pretty much come up with all kinds of stuff. I've done deep fried. I cube a lot of it
too.
Yeah, and you don't cook it very long. Just brown up that crust on the outside, and the meat on the inside being medium rare about that point. Man, that's perfect. Kids like that too. It's just about, I think more to that is about getting the right cut of meat so that it doesn't come out tough either way. And we've done it with backstrap before too. Tenderloin, I basically cut both of those out of a deer, and usually both of them go in a package because tenderloin's not like a real thick cut of meat, so you don't really get a lot. And pretty much me and Alicia can eat one whole one by herself and then split the rest between the three kids. But yeah, we don't really do anything too out of the ordinary. I'm trying to find a sausage like attachment for our grinder so we can stuff sausages. I want to do like summer sausage, jalapeno, stuff like that, but I got to find the attachment. We got a Cabela's brand grinder, so I just pretty much probably have to look at their website for that. But they also have, I think, a cubing attachment for some of them.
Mm-hmm.
So it shoves the meat right into perfect little 1-inch cubes or whatever. I want to get that, but we've pretty much done all of our deer ourselves for the last long time. Carter's gotten good at it. He can pretty much go out there and take one down all the way now.
So here's a quote from a website. This is askinglot.com.
Oh.
Says, is canned venison good? There are several good reasons to can venison. Canned venison is shelf stable for up to 2 years and doesn't require refrigeration for long-term storage. Keeping jars in the pantry frees up space in the freezer. Canning tenderizes tough cuts, making a great way to use up shoulder, shank, and neck meat.
Huh.
So there, I wasn't wrong.
Oh, I trusted you.
I didn't.
That's more than I knew about it. No, I want to try some other things because, I mean, the more and more the cost of living keeps on going up. So doing your own stuff like this saves you some money in the end. I mean, does it really? I've kind of thought about that a little bit this year with how much I hunted, Does it really? But at the same time, we're getting some kind of enjoyment and family time and all that out of it too. Carter's probably going to go shoot a couple rabbits hopefully this year. We'll try some recipes with those. And
if we go squirrel hunting, I'll probably bring my pellet.
Oh yeah, he wants to use his pellet gun when he's squirrel hunting. So we'll try that out this year.
And all the squirrels around won't jump away every time you shoot.
That's true. He got a Gamma Whisper 177 caliber. He wanted one like Papa's, like my dad's, with a scope on it. And he likes it. I told him, I sent him out there the day he got it, and I said, "You're sighting it in yourself," and he sighted it in all by himself.
Nice.
Well, what's been going on with you though? Because I mean, we've been talking enough about my season. You've only been deer hunting one time. What have you been up to?
Taking care of the family, family issues. My business has been really busy because apparently this year a lot of people wait till deer season's actually started to have me work on their guns.
Oh, well, yeah.
I can't get product because I just can't find anything in my wholesaler, so I'm not able to, get a lot of stuff that people want. But between work and taking care of the family, I've been, I'm still maintaining a trap line. I've only got, what do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 traps out is all I got right now. And those are at 2 different properties. The one property is one I've never trapped before, and it's actually in city limits.
Okay.
Because these people are having trouble with coyotes coming basically in their backyard, which is a woodlot, waking them up at night howling and everything. So they asked us to come trap them. So far out of there, we've trapped 6 possums, 1 raccoon, and 1 gray fox. Haven't got a coyote yet, which is frustrating.
You see coyote sign?
Yes, we found scat, and like I said, they wake them up howling,
Yep.
like outside their bedroom window. And there's a guy deer hunting not far from there. It has them on camera all the time.
Okay.
So I know they're in the area. And then the other property is another spot where a guy has some chickens and stuff like that, and the deer hunts back there. And he was getting coyotes on his game camera almost every night. So we set up traps there, and there we've caught 2 possums and 1 gray fox. I actually did have 1 coyote get caught there, and he stole my trap. I still don't know how he did it, but he's walking around with one of my traps on his feet, and I'm hoping he messes up and comes back again. I catch him and figure out where my trap failed. Because he's had him on game camera with a trap on his foot, still coming back through there.
Oh, he's actually seen that same one.
Yep. So I'd like to kind of get him back to get my trap back and figure out, where it failed, how he managed to steal my trap.
Is that a property you call too?
I have called it, and I've never called anything in on it. There's actually a stretch there of almost a mile, give or take, that I can hunt like 3 different properties, and all 3 of them see coyotes. And I've called 2 out of the 3 properties several times, and I've yet to see a coyote or hear a coyote out there. So I think it's a transition area for them. They aren't really hanging around. They're just passing from point A to point B. And it's kind of like a residential area with woods on the back side of everyone's houses. It just goes for the stretch, So once they get past those properties where I have permission, they could be anywhere.
Right. Have you ever considered putting a trail camera up over there?
Well, he has the one place has 2 trail cameras on it. That's, like I said, how he got pictures of the coyote on it. Now, I don't have a cellular cam, and I still would like to get one because I think that would be nice. But this is a landowner that usually whenever he gets a picture, he sends it to me right away.
Okay.
There's a couple nights where I was already out hunting, and he sends me a message of a picture of a coyote on trail camera, and I went out there within an hour, still didn't call anything in.
I've done that before too.
Yeah. I mean, they're traveling. I mean,
Yep.
As we all know, coyotes can go a long ways in 15 minutes. They sure as heck can go a long way in an hour.
Oh yeah, or they can sit there in one spot and not move for an hour too,
Right.
and just completely ignore everything you do.
Right. So I've been maintaining my trap line on and off. I let the one trap line go because he's deer hunting that property now, and I didn't want to be going in and out there every day and screw up his possibility of getting a deer. So that trap line I haven't been doing much with since deer season started. Then I've been getting out and doing a little bit of calling here and there. Actually gotten a couple fox. I've been seeing some coyotes. I mean, a little while back, I shot a triple that was pretty awesome. I was rather impressed with myself on that one. First coyote was at like 60 yards. I shot that one. Had 2 more come in, and they were like 300 and some yards out. Took a poke at them, missed. They actually ran closer to me, and they lined up just right, and I got 2 with 1 shot. So that was my big accomplishment of the year, I think.
Well, I think that is that one on our YouTube?
Yeah, it's on our YouTube page. Yep.
And that second one, which one dropped? The first one that you
The
hit?
first one that got hit dropped right off the bat.
Okay, I knew one of them dropped, and one of them. I mean, you wouldn't have thought that coyote was hit.
He
I
made
don't
like a
think.
25-yard short half circle and rolled.
Yeah. What did you find when you skinned those?
They were both complete pass-throughs right through the boiler room.
With what gun set up?
6.5 Grendel with a 100 grain Nosler ballistic tip.
Would you have thought that would have done that?
You know, I haven't shot a lot of them at that far of a distance. When I shot those two, it was what, 260? No, it's just shy of 300 yards. It's like 280 something, I think.
Yep.
And I've only really shot like, well, maybe one or two other coyotes out that far. And at that range, I think the bullet's still holding together fairly well. So you're not getting really rapid expansion out of it, would be my guess. So it doesn't surprise me that the one ran. I mean, he didn't run far. Like I said, it was only like 25 yards.
Yep.
So it doesn't surprise me, honestly, no. That one, I think was when it passed through, it was just behind the shoulder, where the other one was more or less right through the shoulders.
Which surprises me going through shoulder that didn't expand.
Right. But again, at that velocity, that bullet isn't going to expand as much as it would at a higher velocity.
Yeah.
So, we were shooting hogs down in Louisiana. I use that same load down there on hogs. And I mean, it dropped hogs good. But again, shooting those hogs, most of the time we were within 50 to 100 yards.
Right.
We weren't shooting them out that far. I mean, we've all seen coyotes run with big old holes in them and everything else. So, I mean, nothing surprises me with a coyote anymore, to be honest with you.
Yep. No, I agree. What about the fox? Because I know you've shot two now, right?
Yeah, two reds. The first
with different guns.
Yes, the first red I shot with my Grendel. That one, that fox, it still has me scratching my head because I have no idea where the hell that fox came from.
Yep.
I was calling a spot where we had coyotes on camera, and it was actually in a livestock pasture. I was inside the pasture. There was a fence in front of me. I had my collar hanging from that fence. It was probably 40 yards out. And I can see to my left, probably 75 yards, it goes into a cornfield. Straight in front of me, probably 160 yards, it drops down into a swamp. To my right, it was probably 200 yards to a thin wood line that goes to an orchard. And behind me was the farm. I can see plenty. And I'm scanning, the whole time. Didn't see squat. I looked to my left, I think it was. I come back and I look, and there's an animal right there between me and the collar. So like 20, 30 yards in front of me. And I'm like, well, actually, because I hadn't been seeing anything, I was like a half step away from my tripod so I could turn and scan better.
Yep.
And I turned looking, there's this animal and he's looking at the collar. And I'm like, my first thought was, had to be a house cat sneak up or something. But even then I'm like, how did it sneak up? And I looked again, I'm like, that's a fox. So it turned around and looked at me. So I froze. And then it turned back, looked at the collar again. So I got to the gun and this all happened pretty fast. My first shot missed and I had to shave some hair off it, but I missed the first shot that was at like 30 yards.
Yep.
It took off running to the north. I barked at it and stopped it, and made that shot. And that Grendel's not friendly on fox. I mean, with this bullet anyway, the 100 grain Nosler ballistic tip, it tears them up bad, which is why lately I've switched to running the 204 or the 223.
See, now I'm surprised you'd go to a 204 because I feel like that being so fast and so small would do more damage.
Well, we'll get to that in just a second. So I got that fox and there was no saving it. It tore it up pretty bad. So fast forward to just this past weekend? No, it was last weekend. Went out to a property where I hunted it a little while back, and I seen both a red fox and a coyote on this property, and they both came in an area where I didn't have a safe shot because there's houses off in the distance. So I went out and called it, had a little bit different wind. And again, big, huge open fields. And this time I was using the 204 with LTV on it. And I'm looking, scanning, nothing. All of a sudden I look to the right, same direction they came from last time. And here comes this fox just busting across the field. So I swiveled to get the gun on him so I could track him, and he disappears. I'm like, where the heck did he go? So I switch back to the thermal, and I'm looking for him. And I'm like, where the heck did he go? I couldn't see him. Well, all of a sudden, he's down here in front of me, which is a good spot for me to shoot at him. So he runs around in front of me, ran out towards the collar, turned around, ran back again. I mean, he was going all over the place. Finally, he ran like right out to the collar. And then he got to the collar and realized it was plastic and not furry. And he turned and ran away from me. And I don't know, that shot was probably about 100 yards, give or take. Shot him with a 204, which I'm using the 36 grain Sierra, which has been working really good on coyotes for me. And he hit him, he spun and then ran. He ran maybe another 30 yards, 40 yards and piled up.
Yep.
So when I skinned that one out, though, I hit him low and in the chest, which is why I think he actually ran. But when I skinned it out, got down to that hole and looked inside, there was nothing left inside his chest. It was just a hollow cavity.
Yep.
I think the velocity of that bullet and everything kind of sucked everything in his chest right out. So I'm kind of surprised he went that far. Now the fur is still plenty good because it was, bottom of the chest. So it really didn't affect any fur that I'm going to save anyway. So he's skinned out and fleshed out and ready to be tanned. But that's one thing that I want to find out for with this gun. Right now, I only have 2 bullet options, really. Actually, I take that back. I have 2 that I can use right now, which one is at 36 grain. And then I've also loaded up a bunch of the 40 grain VMAX. But I do have some 32 grain bullets to try and develop a load for. But I want to try it on a few other Fox to see exactly how it does do. I know I have a couple buddies of mine that say they absolutely love it for Fox and Bobcats.
Yep.
But I think both those guys are using that like 32 grain of Armageddon.
Yep.
And that's a much more fragile, lighter bullet than like the 40 grain VMAX that I'm using right now.
Yep.
I'd like to take a few more and just see how it does perform. And then I'll probably try and load up some of those 32 grainers and see how they do.
Well, for people that don't really know much about them or see very many of them, a fox, when you take its fur off, I mean, if you look at its chest straight on, you probably have maybe 4 inches.
Yeah, if you're lucky.
I mean, and that's probably a big fox.
They are a very thinly constructed animal.
Yeah, and people, I mean, and it's the same with coyotes. We saw one today. A guy posted, "How big is this coyote? It's got to be the biggest one," and it's 90% of it is the fur.
Yeah, especially now that fur is starting to come in good.
Yep, and the furs on both of your fox were nice. I mean, winter furred up.
The first one that I shot, he was mediocre. This last one, he's not prime yet, but it is starting to get better.
Good white on his tail.
Save it.
What's that?
It's good enough that I'm going to save it.
Yeah, good white on its tail.
Yeah. Now, like the fox I shot last year, that 17 out of the LT, where with the Thor LT, that one was a late season fox, and his fur was actually kind of thin, I thought, compared to, one I have hanging on my wall, which is a full prime fur, and that one's just beautiful.
Right.
So this one I shot most recently, it was probably kind of a happy medium between those two, where that one I shot right at the beginning of fox season there, his wasn't that great yet, but like I said, he got tore up by the bullet anyway.
And I don't see very many fox really in general. If I do see them, it's usually in the off season when I do.
Yeah.
But I shoot a 243 and I've shot a couple with that, and it's usually not very pretty.
Yeah.
So if I did have an actual fox spot, I'd probably switch back over to the 17. See, my predicament right now is I got the LTV off the 17B mag on the 350 Legend. Well, then once it's time to put the deer gun away, I'll take that back off, put it back on the rimfire, and then Carter can go out with me. I can use it squirrel hunting in daytime, whatever. And I do still got to talk to you about a 223 upper for that 350. But
yeah, I was gonna say, if we just slapped a 223 upper on there, you'd be golden. Just throw
exactly. And that would be that would be perfect caliber for Carter to get behind and have a little more oomph behind it. But I actually had a guy probably 2 weeks ago, right at the beginning of gun season, send me a trail cam picture, and he's one of my landowners, and it's a coyote, and he says, "You know the drill, search and destroy." And I said, I can, but where I am, and it's the like Apple Ave rifle line for deer that is a change of caliber restrictions during gun season.
Right.
So I'm south of that. You are north of that. So south of that during gun season, I think it's probably what, through the 10th through the end of the season, pretty much, because it's quiet time before that.
Right. Yeah. So you have from the 10th of November through January 1st, basically.
No.
Or November 30th.
December 1st.
Yeah. December 1st.
Yeah. So I have to switch back to the rimfire or shotgun, and
Right.
I really don't like going out coyote hunting specifically with the rimfire, just because I'd much rather watch them fall over and not watch them run, and sometimes be in a place where I can no longer go retrieve them.
Yep. And I get that, but I tell you what, I mean, I shot a coyote this year already with a 17, and I was surprised by how well it did. I mean, it just dumped that coyote. I've actually had really good luck with a 17.
Yeah, and I mean, I've shot quite a few with it.
Because that's all we had for quite a while.
Right. Yeah, and I watched you shoot one on the run with yours and still kill it. I don't know how. That was the luckiest shot in the world. Carter shot his with it last year, like 150 or so,
Yeah.
But I shoot the
25 grain.
25 grain, but I was having trouble finding it because I had never been up to see you in, like, I don't know, 3 years or something it's been.
Yeah.
I could never pick up ammo from you, but I think I was shooting 20s for a little while because I ran out of 25s, but I prefer in the WSM the 25 grades.
They have released, and I've actually seen some in stock now, and I want to try it, a new 17 grain lead-free bullet in that.
We talked about that one like over a year ago. It just hadn't been released.
Yep. And you couldn't find them anywhere, but I recently actually found them in stock, and I want to try them.
And that thing's going to be screaming, and I wonder how well it's going to pattern.
I think they said like 32 or 3,400 feet per second.
That's right where my 243 is, pretty much.
Yeah, it's faster than the 20 grainers. And I think it's like a copper bullet, so it should hold together well. But I would really like to try them, just like you said, to see how they group and see what the terminal performance is.
It'd probably be wicked on a squirrel.
Oh, probably would be. That'd be awesome. I need to get some.
Who's making that?
Winchester? Yeah. I've only found it at like 1 or 2 places online, said they actually had it in stock.
Huh.
And as a matter of fact, maybe this coming week, I might, if I can still find it, I'll probably order a box or 2 to see how it does.
Yeah, because it would be interesting to see. Yeah. I don't know. Do you think with that small of a bullet, you really want it to hold together better?
If it expands good.
Like forms a good mushroom?
Yeah. If it excuse me, if it expands good, and you get rapid expansion out of it, yet it still holds together, I think it'd perform really well.
Yeah, we should try it.
But that's the question is, at that velocity, if I'll have to look at it, because like I said, they said it's a lead free. So that doesn't mean there's no lead in it. They could have used a substitute metal that's jacketed, like a powdered metal or something different. So I don't know. I have to do some more research on it and see, but I want to try it. Just see how it does. If I get some, what I'll probably do is first shoot it for groups, and then I'll probably do a water jug test on it just to see what it actually does in water. So we'll try it and find out.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see. 17 grain, that's pretty small.
Yeah. But I completely agree with you. I mean, I that quiet time, I'd posted on Michigan Coyote Hunters about guys getting out with there, and I actually don't know that I even got out during that quiet time.
No.
And since then I've been out, a bit, but I much rather use a center fire as well. I mean, it's more effective.
And I think I'd much rather be using a center fire with a suppressor, but we're still waiting on that one.
Yeah. That's kind of the downside of most of it, It's like I keep kicking around the idea of getting another one yet, and I keep thinking the same thing as what I told you. If you would have ordered it by now, you would have had it. And I keep thinking if I order it now, I'll have it next year. But the longer I wait, the longer it's gonna be before I have it. You know,
Yeah, but the weight's going to be the same amount.
the weight will be the same amount, but difference is if I order it in 2021, I might have it in 2022, as opposed to if I order it in 2022, I'm not gonna have it till 2023.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky, yeah.
See, I was supposed to, my text or my stamp was approved, I think, approved or cashed in
The
April.
check was cashed.
Yep. And they told me November. Well, I called them, a week ago? And they said, yeah, probably January, maybe February. And I'm like, oh, so we're just going to keep on pushing it back. Why not? I don't know.
Well, I would, if I had to hazard a guess, because for a long time there, the approval times were down considerably.
Yep.
But I'm guessing with COVID and everything else, it's probably slowed down those approval times.
Yep.
Just because they don't have as many people to process it would be my guess.
Yep.
Which sucks. That I mean, it's affecting everybody, and there's no reason to not think it would be affecting that as well. But remember, I gave you a tip on how you might be able to speed that
I
up.
know. I know. Well, I mean, you know more about the stuff than I do. Why is this process for getting a suppressor so damn difficult?
Well, because you have, let's do a conservative guess and say you have what? 5 million gun owners in the country minimum. And suppressors are actually one of the largest growing markets in the firearm industry out there. And the actual people they have processing those process suppressors, short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns, any other weapons, and fully automatic firearms. And they don't have a lot of staff that does that. So a lot of it is just the fact that there's a huge workload for the amount of people that they have that process those forms. Now that being said, like I mentioned a little bit ago, the ATF did hire more people. What I think it was about a year ago, give or take, because they were getting so backlogged and because they were getting political pressure because people were calling saying, hey, where's my stuff? That they actually upped their staffing levels. But again, like I said, with COVID and everything else, probably employee turnover, et cetera, even though they hired more people, I wouldn't be surprised if they still don't have a whole lot of people processing all those forms. And like I said, you have the largest growing facet of the firearms industry right now. So every one of those has a form. You have people that buy 2, 3, 4 at a time, and they have to go through all those forms and go through the whole process. And I've heard some guys report, sometimes it just depends on where your stuff lands on whose desk at what time.
Yeah.
You know, it's unfortunate, but I don't see that changing anytime soon unless they do something more to streamline the process or get more people in there to process the forms through sooner.
Well, I mean, what with all the regulations they have on them, why is the suppressor so hard regulated, so strongly regulated?
Well, initially it was all a tax generating process. If you go back and look at the history of suppressors, back when Hiram Maxim first designed a suppressor and sold them, they called them mufflers, they called them suppressors, whatever, and you could buy them in a hardware store for like $5. The government said, hey, let's tax those because we can get money off them. And you know, there's some people that believe that, like the NFA stuff, because it was made to generate tax revenue, was also made. If you look back in history, when they first enacted the taxation of suppressors, full auto, etc., it was $200, and that was back in what, 60s, something like that. That tax on those items has stayed the same from all the way back then to now. Well, back then, as we all know, $200 was a whole lot more money.
Mm-hmm.
And some people feel that's one of the reasons why they set the taxation on those at the level they did, because they didn't want some people to have them. So, one, it was designed as a tax generating thing for the government to get more money off stuff. And also, it was made possibly, according to some people's beliefs, that some people wouldn't be able to get them because they couldn't afford them.
Yeah.
And that has stayed the same over the years, except for the fact that the price hasn't changed. So what, back then was a lot of money to the average Joe Blow nowadays, it's still not a lot of money, even though if you look at what you get for it, it's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a literal paper stamp that you will have affixed to a single sheet of paper that costs you $200 per item. That's a lot of money for a piece of paper and a stamp when you can go down and buy one for 28 cents at the post office.
Well, yeah. And I mean, my biggest thing is, if, let's say I came to you, filled out the next check for a firearm purchase, and I was denied that.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be, I would still be denied a suppressor because of the paperwork that I have to go through.
Right.
So the thing that irritates me is if I can go to you, get my background check that fast, get the approval. This guy is good. He's bought this, and this. They already know everything I got. I just don't. I hate the fact that I can't.
Well,
and obviously I can't do anything about it. But if I can legally walk in, buy a gun, walk out, they've already checked me. I don't see why it's such a stink to have.
And that's something I don't know, is if the background check that you receive for an NFA item is any more in-depth than what you go through on a 4473.
Okay.
Now, when you purchase an NFA item, you have, as you know, there's more paperwork to it, but you send it in. But then even when you go to pick that up from your transferring dealer or whatever, you still have to fill out a 4473. And I believe that the dealer that you get that from has to run it the same as I do for any other firearm. So, but the initial check done by the ATF for the NFA item, I don't know if that's actually any more in depth, and if it is, how in depth it is. The other facet would be, I do most of my background checks here at my business online.
Yep.
I can usually get on there and have a response within a matter of, less than a minute. Once I have the form submitted, I usually have a response back right away. Now, that being said, I have recently had a customer in here. Guy was, 78 years old. He's been a hunter his whole life. He's never been in trouble. He's a vet, bought guns years and years and years. He came in here, I did a background check. He got delayed on it. I'm like, it had me scratching my head. I'm like, I know this guy buys guns all the time, or has over the years. He's a 78-year-old vet, never been in trouble, never had problems. Why all of a sudden does he get a delay?
Yep.
So I actually made a phone call to the ATF and asked him about it. I'm like, this kind of has me scratching my head as to why, this guy would all of a sudden get a delay.
Has he bought guns from you before?
Yes.
Okay. So you've done his background check.
Yes. And the response was that it's all automated. It's in a computer system. So, what'll happen is if the computer picks up something that seems a little bit off or might match somebody else or something like that, what it'll do is it'll flag it, and then it has to be reviewed by a person, basically. So it could have been that somebody with a name very similar or something else could have done something. They flagged it. Then it had to be reviewed. It could have been something as simple as that. But I also had a guy tell me that works for the ATF, said he went in to buy a gun and he got delayed. I'm like, you work for the department? You work for the department? You got a delay? He says, yeah.
That's what you get.
What happened was he went in there to do it, and they actually had a fire alarm in the office where they were processing the background check. So he got delayed because they had to evacuate everybody because of a fire alarm or something goofy like that. It was just like, holy cow. So it's really, I don't really know, the details as to why it happens or if the background check is that much more involved. I just know that they don't have a lot of people that process all those, and there's a huge more people getting into suppressors now than there ever have been. But back to the roots of it all, I'm in the same boat as most of you other guys. There shouldn't be this process to get them. I mean, if you could buy them back in the day in a hardware store for $5, if you look at the positives of the use of suppressors and hearing conservation, also, not getting everybody in the neighborhood knows you're out there shooting or
Not getting yelled at by your hunting partner for blowing out his eardrum.
Yeah, just stuff like that. I mean, there's enough benefits to it, and the fact that they have been used so little in crime that I don't understand why they're regulated to the extent there are. Now, there's been several bills introduced over the past even 5 years to try and make the process of getting them easier. The latest one I heard was they just wanted to make it so you fill out a 4473 just like you're buying any other gun. Even that would be easier.
Yeah.
And so it's just, there's politics at play behind it because people think, oh, it's an evil thing that, people are going to use to kill people and they won't know where it came from because you can't hear it.
And it's money.
And it's money. It's a tax. It's a revenue generating thing, which even if they wanted to keep that and maybe even lower it a bit, I mean, even if they made the process easier with like a 4473 and made it a $50 tax stamp, for one, you're probably gonna have a whole lot more people doing it. So you're gonna kind of balance out that revenue to a certain extent, but also you're just gonna be able to make people get them. And, like I said before, in European countries, it's considered common courtesy to use one. They want you to have them.
So do you know what the process is like over in the UK?
I've talked to a couple of guys over there a little bit about it, and it's really kind of weird. Because I think I was talking to either Joe Jordan or I was talking to Marno from ATN about it one time. And he says it's really weird because you can go in and buy them pretty easy. But it's only regulated and treated as a firearm once you actually put it on a gun. So over there, you have to have like a special license to get a gun. It has to be approved, blah, blah, blah. But the suppressor you can go get, but until you put it on a gun, it's not really treated like anything special until you put it on a gun.
Well, because right now a suppressor is considered a firearm.
Well, no. I mean, it's kind of treated as a firearm, but
I thought I saw something on my paperwork that I was looking over that it's treated pretty much, like it's a gun itself.
yeah, it's treated like it's a gun, for sure. But I mean, in terms of how the paperwork is written, I think I had a copy of it right here. I'm trying to look real quick and see if I did, or if I do right here in front of me. But they talked a lot about, because you have to, when you do the form on it, you have to, it has to have a serial number. You have to name the caliber on it. You have to name the overall length of it, which is all stuff that's really similar to when you do a firearm. And actually, under law, it's treated as a NFA item, which
is what?
National Firearms Act controlled item. So it's the National Firearms Act of, I think it's like 1960 something, which covers suppressors, full auto, short barreled rifles, short barreled shotguns. And then I believe AOWs are under NFA as well. AOWs are treated a little bit different though. So yeah, it's under its own classification that is along with some firearms.
Well, and I mean, back to something you brought up earlier, it's scary and it's quiet and makes it so people could shoot and you don't know where. I was actually talking to a guy about that talks to me quite often about coyote hunting. And I he asked if I had a suppressor, and I said, no, I'm waiting on it. He said, I don't know too much about those. If you can just shoot and nobody'd ever know where that bullet came from because you can't hear it. I said, you watch way too much TV.
Yeah.
I said, you need to get out behind one that's actually being fired on a real gun.
Yeah.
That's because it's not anything like that. Now, I have heard 22s with a suppressor. That's pretty darn quiet.
Yeah. Anything that you get that is going to be subsonic
Yep.
is going to be impressively quiet, but it's not going to be Hollywood quiet.
No.
And Hollywood gets it closer to reality every now and then, but anything that's subsonic is going to be better. But as a hunter, I prefer to use full power loads.
Yep.
And what it does, it makes it so it's hearing safe. You're not going to damage your hearing by having it. And it also makes it so that the sound is less directional when you're down range, because what you're going to hear is a supersonic crack of the bullet, as opposed to the blast, which is easy to figure out, okay, the sound came from over there. Now, when you're shooting a full power load out of a rifle, you're still going to get that. So you can still pinpoint the location of where that shot came from, but it's not going to be, a huge blast.
Echoing boom.
Right. Exactly. I mean, there's guys that have watched some of my videos even and say, oh, that doesn't sound very quiet. And it's on video, you can't get a real appreciation for it.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been next to me when I've shot mine. Matter of fact, you've shot mine before.
Yep.
Like on my 223, it makes it sound about like a 22 mag.
Yep.
I mean, you can still hear it. And that's another misconception by a lot of people, especially ignorant politicians, is they don't know. They just assume it's something scary, So
yeah, I mean, I've kind of been waiting on that. Now that I have put the money towards it and everything like that, I've been like, man, I just want that thing to come in, because it seems like more and more this year included, I was getting stopped more often after a gunshot, or somebody'd call me in for a vehicle or whatever. And it's like, if I can eliminate one of those stops because of a gunshot, that's good enough for me. Plus, yeah, I do like the thought of it being a lot quieter and not waking up the neighbors, because most farmers still have neighbors somewhere that don't necessarily know what's going on.
Right. Or maybe even neighbors that don't like hunting, where if it's not going to disturb them, they don't know about it, then good, I mean.
Well, and you've got a spot specifically like that, don't you?
I do. I have a couple spots actually where he only wants me to shoot suppressed out there, because his neighbors aren't overly fond of hunting. And he says, as long as you use that suppressor, I'm good with it.
Yeah.
And there's been a couple cases recently. As a matter of fact, Jeremy was just telling me when they were up deer hunting, he was running a suppressor on 2 of his guns when they were up deer hunting, and he shot one of the deer up there. And he says when they got back to camp, he said one of the guys that was up there with him never even heard him shoot. He says, I heard something, but it didn't sound like it was anywhere near here.
And he's shooting a Grendel, right?
6.5 Creedmoor and 223 is what he was using.
Oh, okay. That's right. 6.5 Creedmoor, not the Grendel.
And I've been out where I've shot right behind people's houses on their property, come dragging a coyote back, and they're like, I never even heard you shoot. And I said, yeah, that's kind of the idea. That's why I like it,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I mean, I'm just waiting on that, and I mean, it's about time though for me to get back out there. I pretty much needed to put some meat in the freezer before I focused and spent all my gas and time on coyotes, but I'm starting to get there where the landowners are messaging me now more and more regularly with the coyote problems again. And I mean, I really haven't pushed that hard this whole year to coyote hunt. I mean, I still did it quite a bit, but not nearly as often as the last couple of years with stuff changing around the house and life in general. It just, I went to bed early a whole lot more this year than normal, but I'm excited to get out, get that suppressor and get back out after him. But Kevin, I think we've been on here for hour 20 minutes, probably pushing now. Is there anything else you want to finish up with?
No, that was about it. It was good to catch up and, talk about what's been going on. And now we just have to see what's next.
Yeah. I mean, I've still got some plans. I still really want to kill a deer with my bow. I mean, that is what I love, is bow hunting. And I do have some plans to hopefully go do a couple more hanging hunts, probably be on public land, probably just for a doe at that point. I really, if I go a whole year without killing one with my bow, man, that's gonna hurt me. That's gonna hurt. But I'm going to be taking my bow in at the end of season and just having it completely gone over. I feel like it's louder than it should be, and I don't know if something's loose or it's just something's worn. I had new strings put on it last year, but the last 4 deer I think I shot at, besides the one that I know I pulled the shot on this year, have dropped at the shot. Like that, it shouldn't happen that often. I never seen that many deer duck arrows like they are mine. So I'm gonna have it taken in and completely gone over, tuned up, fixed up, whatever's got to be done.
Do you have anything on that bow right now that's supposed to help quiet it down? Like,
yeah, there's limb savers.
Okay.
Just go on the limbs, the rubber stick on kind. It just, I don't know if there's just when you listen to even my videos and I shoot, it sounds like something rattles. And I've gone over that thing and smacked it and pushed on stuff. And I mean, I did drop it out of a tree this year, but it was the same noisy before that as it was after.
Could there be something else that's making the noise, like your release or a quiver or anything like that?
My release stays in my hand, so I wouldn't think that would, and then my thumb is completely on it because it's a thumb style, so I've got it completely wrapped in my hand when I shoot, so there should be no
noise.
Just a tick.
Okay.
That's the only thing it does. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't know if something on my sight housing is moving, which it shouldn't be because it's always sighted in the same, but you never know. It should get in. It's a 2016, I think, bow. So it's, 5 years, almost 6 years old. It can get gone over. It might need axle grease and stuff like that, so I don't know, but, yeah, that's my plan for the rest of the year. Really, I'm hoping the boys will want to go out deer hunting a couple more times and put at least, if I could put 2 more in the freezer, we'll survive. So that's the goal for now, but it's also, right around the corner. It's the 29th, and I can open up the big gun again on the 1st of December.
Yeah.
Midnight tomorrow night, I could be out there.
Yeah.
I won't be, but
I would still like to get a deer in the freezer. I mean, we got plenty of bear meat, but I would like to top the freezer off and then give some probably to my folks and maybe some to the kids, and let them eat. So I still want to get a deer down, at least one for the season yet. Got a couple spots I might be able to go hit yet. So we'll see how it goes. Need the weather to cooperate a little bit for one.
See, and we've had, I guess it depends on what you want. Well, you get nastier weather up by you a lot of times, but like me down here, I tell the boys, hey, it's perfect morning to go. No, I don't want to. It's too cold. It's too breezy. And I'm like, guys, you don't know what you're going to miss out on. And it seems every time that happens, that's when I do see some deer, but it's whatever. I'm trying to learn. People who have listened to this podcast since the beginning, I'm trying to learn to not force and just let it happen. Let Owen, I didn't ask him to go hunting at all this year. I bought his tags, and he's only told me one time he wanted to go, and that was last week. And I took him out. We didn't see anything, but he was cold. The last 20 minutes of dark. And I said, dude, it's your hunt. If you want to leave, we'll leave. I said, but we got 20 minutes maybe left. I said, this is the time to be sitting here. And he said, no, I want to go. So I got to get them some warmer clothes, figure out maybe a blind or something. And that's really my plan for the rest of the year. So, but if you got nothing else, Kevin, I appreciate your time as always. I appreciate everything you do for Overdrive, and everybody that's listening to this. Thank you guys all so much. We've gotten quite a few messages. I don't know if you've gotten some personally, Kevin. I know I've gotten some personally. We get them to the page, people liking the podcast and liking what's going on here. And we appreciate every single one of you that takes the time to listen to these and, watch our page and check in with what we're doing. That is why we do it. That's
Not-
literally why we do it.
And not only that, but I mean, we'll take requests if you have a particular topic you'd like us to cover, and we're always looking for guests.
Yeah.
I mean, we like to hear other people's stories too, what people got going on. I mean, even if you have a product or something you want to talk about, I mean, just let us know. I mean, we're open to all kinds of stuff.
Absolutely. It's always nice to talk to somebody else. I
Yep.
don't just like talking to Kevin all the time. All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much. We will talk to you all probably next week again. Everybody stay safe, shoot straight, have fun.
We'll talk to you
later.
soon. Thanks.